everybody, welcome to Art with Amanda. I'm Miss Amanda with the Bexley Public Library. Now in today's episode we are going to be drawing some very seasonal plants, the pumpkin and the apple. Now as you guys can see, I've already gone through and done some of my warm-ups. If you haven't already done so yourself, I recommend doing some straight lines, some circles, some C curves, and some S curves. And that should get your wrist and your arm nice and warmed up and ready to go for this one. Now I'm going to pop open an extra sheet of paper here, and let's get to drawing. Now we're going to start with the pumpkin. And for as complicated as it looks, pumpkins actually aren't super difficult. We're going to start with an oval in the center, and that's going to be the center of our pumpkin, the middle section, the middle lobe. And then I'm going to go through and add some side sections using C curves. Now, as I go through, I'm mostly just trying to make sure that the bottom of my pumpkin stays relatively flat. Though sometimes, as you can see, your bottom ends up a little kind of bumpier while the top of your pumpkin ends up a little flatter. So what I'm probably going to do, is I'm actually going to turn my drawing over. Because it looks like my top here ended up looking a little bit better than my bottom. There we go. So now the bottom of my pumpkin is a little bit flatter. Looks like it might sit on a nice flat table, while the top of my pumpkin is a little bit bumpier, sort of like a real pumpkin. So alright, now that I've got the pumpkin part of my pumpkin, I'm going to go through and I'm going to add a stem. And stems are just going to be two sort of shallow C curves connected by a straight line. Now you can get a little fancier with it and draw like little vines or tendrils on the actual stem itself, but completely unnecessary. Just a nice sort of plain little stem here is perfect. And then just to fancy it up a little bit, I am going to go through and draw a little side vine, just sort of showing that my pumpkin was originally attached to a vine. And there you go. Now we have a pumpkin. So we're going to draw his little companion here, the apple. Now apples are also pretty simple. Just like the pumpkin, they are mostly C curves. So we're going to go through and we're going to do a C curve for the side, and then a C curve for the other side, and then we're going to connect two C curves with two more C curves. So just a little C curve on the top and a little C curve on the bottom. Now in the top C curve, which you guys will notice I made a little bit bigger than the bottom. You don't have to do it that way, but I feel it usually ends up looking a little nicer. But now in your top C curve here, I'm going to take and draw the stem, so another sort of shallow C curve, and then try to connect the stem down to a point at the bottom. Most apple stems are a little bit thinner at the bottom than they are at the top, and so this ends up looking the most realistic if you do it this way. So we've got our little stem of our apple, and then we're going to go through and use a C curve and another C curve to make a little leaf. And then I like to draw a little line in the center to show that this is a leaf. And then there you go, you have a basic apple. You can go back through and sort of make your lines look a little nicer, which I usually like to do. And then you can even go through and add a little bit of shine on the apple to show the light that is reflecting down on the apple. Now, if you want to do what I did in that first drawing and make it so that the two overlap, you can just sort of go in, and if you're on a computer, just move it right over. Hello, Akira. Our dog has joined us. So now I have the two sort of overlapping, and if you started with the two overlapping, drawing it kind of nice to get a little bit of a look of perspective, I'm going to go through and erase where your apple overlapped. And then draw back in the pumpkin. So there you go. You now have a little pumpkin and a little apple. Perfect for the fall season. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you for joining me on Art with Amanda. Have an excellent rest of your day. Bye, everybody!